moments when I look at him and I don't even recognize the man I married. This is my story.
Previously in Part 7.
Almost immediately, a flurry of angry messages came flooding in. Predictably, it was all about how unreasonable I was and making him upset for no reason. He warned me not to regret it and not to come running back to him crying and begging for forgiveness. 2 days later, the doctor told me everything had stabilized and I was cleared to leave the hospital. Will came to pick me up. I told him it was too much trouble and that I could just call a cab, but he just laughed and said it was no big deal. It was what neighbors were for. His kindness hit with a pang of sadness. Ashton rarely ever drove me anywhere. However, if Ruby called, no matter how far she was, he would pick her up.
You have a car, don't you? Why don't you drive yourself? Ruby doesn't have a license, so of course I have to go and pick her up. What if something happens to her while she's taking a cab? Are you going to take responsibility for that?
That was what Ashton had thrown back at me the last time I asked him for a ride. I had just opened the car door to get into the passenger seat when I felt a strong hand yank me back. Startled, I turned to see Ashton standing behind me, his face dark and angry. "What are you doing here?" I asked, confused. I had not heard from him for 2 days. Did Ashton actually care enough to come to the hospital to pick me up the moment he returned? Then, his eyes flicked over to Will, and his voice was full of anger.